without her ex-husband. The 76-year-old politician, known in the West African nation as the Iron Lady, is the most high-profile name among those who were allowed to run against incumbent Alassane Ouattara. Simone Gbagbo played a leading role in the turbulent tenure of former President Laurent Gbagbo, which was marked by civil war from 2002 to 2007 and again after the 2010 election. Simone Gbagbo launched her current party following her divorce from former President Laurent Gbagbo. The diplomatic advisor to the United Arab Emirates President Anwar Gargash has called for the immediate ceasefire in Sudan. Gargash says Sudan is currently not letting the UAE play the humanitarian role it plays in Gaza, but expressed readiness to scale up efforts once it is allowed to. The Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces have been fighting for control of Sudan since April 2023, creating the world's worst humanitarian crisis. The Sudanese army accuses the United Arab Emirates of providing the RSF support, including advanced weaponry and mercenary fighters, charges the UAE has denied repeatedly. South Africa's Police Minister Senzo Mchunu is back in the hot seat before Parliament's ad hoc committee today. The committee is looking into allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the justice system made by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Among others, Mkhwanazi alleged that top police officers and Mchunu are involved in criminal syndicates. Mchunu has said that he is also concerned about factionalism in the top echelons of the police service, and he has tried to address it.
I don't know where this faction-like kind of situation in the top brass of subs, where it comes from. All I can say is that when I came, it seems to have been there already, not that it got created after I arrived. It may not have been showing, but it was there, seemingly. And that's why, among other things, I called a meeting with National Commissioner and Deputy National Commissioner.
Meanwhile, the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry investigating allegations of criminality, corruption and political interference in South Africa's criminal justice system has commenced with a new witness testifying off camera. Witness B is sharing insight into the work the team did in cracking the murder of Vereniging engineer Armand Swartz, leading to the arrests of murder-accused Katiso K.T. Molefe, the challenges that the team faced when dealing with this case.
Throughout my career, I've been dealing with the complex matters, mainly serious and violent crimes, of which it had its own challenges. But with this case, it has been a unique one. I think it has escalated to the extreme, and it has so many interferences, it has so many threats. Not that I never dealt with threats before, but in this instance it was so intense.
And finally, US President Donald Trump has said he did not want a wasted meeting after a plan to have face-to-face talks with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin about the war in Ukraine were put on hold. Speaking in the Oval Office, Trump implied that a refusal to freeze the fighting in Ukraine along current battle lines was a sticking point. His comments come after a phone call with the US Secretary of State and Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who rejected the proposal outright.
Now, when we hear from Washington that we must stop immediately and that we must not discuss anything further, stop and let history judge. If we simply stop, that will mean forgetting about the root causes of the conflict, which Donald Trump's administration has clearly understood and voiced.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jonani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In a sports headline, the road to Morocco 2026 is heating up for Southern African teams. And South African weightlifter Anneke Spies-Berger is determined to qualify for the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Oh, thank you to Jolani Tulongwepe with our news update and Figile Lungwati with our sports headlines. It is 12:06 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. And join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406-9126 hashtag Africa Updates, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Our tensions are again escalating in Madagascar, where thousands of mostly Gen Z protesters have taken to the streets of Antananarivo in protest against the appointment of a new prime minister by the country's recently sworn-in military leader, that's Colonel Michael Randrianirina. Now, the colonel seized power in the island last week following the impeachment and flight of President André Rajoelina. Our young protesters say the move betrays promises of democratic reform and transparency, accusing the new military-led administration of tightening its grip instead of preparing for elections. Now, for a look at what this means for the country and nations in the region, we are joined on the line by expert in African security governance at the Royal Danish Defence College, as Professor Thomas Mandrup. Professor Mandrup, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Now, Prof, what is your response to the latest protest in Madagascar? Is there an end in sight?
It's difficult to say. It depends very much on what the military junta has what its ambitions are. One could say that the protests erupted and was, as you mentioned in your introduction, it was a consequence of the lack of development, lack of water, lack of electricity outlets, and all that over a long time, corruption, blatant corruption, and elitist behavior, and control and power, and they wanted to do something about that. The military then came in and promised to do something differently, and then the first thing they do is to appoint a prime minister who's part of the elite, with everything that the protesters went to the streets to object to. So I think it depends on what the military wants to do, and if they really want reform. And there's a lot of comparisons here we can draw to other places in Africa where we've seen similar coups.
Now, the African Union Peace and Security Council has suspended Madagascar, citing its zero-tolerance policy to military coups. But one of the country's members of parliament, that's Mami Rabenirina, has accused the AU of playing helicopter politics while turning a blind eye to the cries of citizens. What's your take on both? The AU suspension and accusations that the AU is quick to condemn coups that result from years of the AU's silence when there are cries from citizens?
Yeah, you could argue that there's a credence to both the arguments, basically. Of course, AU has its principles that if you turn over the constitutional order, you automatically get suspended. We've had one exception for that, and that was the palace coup in Chad a few years back for various political reasons, and highly problematic for the AU, where it was not suspended. But the AU has a zero tolerance to the unconstitutional change of government. And countries that have had military takeovers, they are only reinstated as members when they have the re-establishment of constitutional order. But it points to a bigger issue here around the AU. And then one of the things that have been around the AU is that the AU, from the outset, when it's agreed to the principle of a non-acceptance of unconstitutional change of government, to try to stop the widespread military coups we've seen over the years in around Africa. They forgot to talk about that there was this condition that, of course, the countries needs to be democratic and have good governance. And there's another agreement on that. So it's one of the key issues here that when states like the problematic states in many ways, like Madagascar, or you could take the Sahel countries and others, or Gabon for that matter, where you have had a deficit of democracy and good governance, and where people rebel, and sometimes the military coups can be seen as part of that expression of public dissent. That they respond to something that is undemocratic or authoritarian in many ways. Is that then a change of constitutional order when you have a government that is not legitimate? And therefore, there's credence to both arguments. But for the ABU's point of view, they need to adhere to this principle to try to stop this very negative tendency of military coups. But on the other hand, the member states need to have a clear view and try to implement actually the principles which are in the AU Charter around good governance, democracy, and places like that, and be serious around that, because we have seen a democratic backslide and a backslide in human security around Africa in recent years, and that needs to be taken serious, because they're not solving that at the EU level. And if you don't have that principle around democracy and good governance tied to the non-acceptance of unconstitutional change of government, then of course it can be a safeguard for authoritarian leaders that they can avoid public rebellion or takeovers because they are the constitutional order, even though they're authoritarian.
Now, by contrast to the African Union's actions, the SADC development, the Southern African Development Community, has taken a more conciliatory approach. Are both these organs doing the work they are mandated to do in times of conflict on the continent, or does it serve them better to react after the fact?
Yeah, one could say it's always better to be preemptive, but that's the problem. We often see in many African countries that there's this hands-off kind of thing that we've seen. Things that are problematic, and just take the SADC region. We've just had 2 months ago, we had a serious public protest in Angola. It's been long underway. You have a corrupt government, undemocratic government in many ways, highly problematic. Has SADC been critical around that? Have they done anything around that? That could easily end up in something bad. We know that tensions are very high in Zimbabwe. It's been for a long time. We have a deeply corrupt president who's trying to sit on power. We have factional battles within the ZANU-PF, and we have opposition in shambles. So we have violence, and we have all these kind of things. We know all the things that are bad. Are SADC doing anything about that? No, they're not. And therefore, of course, you're quite right that it's not enough to react afterwards and condemn. And that's also back to the whole, what I tried to allude to before, that if you don't combine the non-acceptance of unconstitutional change of government, which leads to suspension of membership, for instance, in the AU, with the whole that there is a conditional and requirement because the country has signed up to this for democracy and good governance. Also, then of course we're in trouble. And then also there needs to be this consensus culture where you do not criticize each other in public and all these kind of things. Maybe there's also time to have a more critical view on that, and maybe also take the problems heads on. All that we can also mention Mozambique as a very recent example, just in SADC, to mention a few, and then around the continent we see it all over.
Now, with the current conflict, what does this mean for the country's main revenue provider, which is the tourism sector?
Yeah, of course, again, if you look at the different security advice coming in from Madagascar, flights are cancelled, you have, it's difficult for people to get in and out. People are not traveling to countries where there is public unrest and where travel advice is not to go. So this got quite critical. I think with the biggest problem right now, and again, it's back to what you said in the introduction around Madagascar, is that the transitional government has said it will be sitting there until next election for a transitional period of 18 to 24 months. And I think the key issue here is, will the military junta be able to convince people on the streets that they are actually in office to try to transform and take one big dip at the elites that have monopoly on power in Madagascar for generations, or is it just a way of trying to cement and control, secure its power and control of the state, which the military for a long time has been, the backbone of the regime in that. Is it really reform we're seeing, or is it something else? And I think that is the key issue. If the military cannot convince the civil society groups and opposition politics and all that around that there's actually a genuine attempt to try to improve the situation, then we're most likely going to continue to see people go to the streets, and that can end violence. We always seen a lot of people died and injured people from clashes between security forces and the protesters. So hopefully we will see a reform, and we see a dialogue and opening of trying to reform. But the appointment of the current prime minister is not a good signal. Let's put it that way.
Now, does the situation in Madagascar have the potential to spill over to neighboring countries in the region? And what would that mean for the region?
I think the thing is, of course, Madagascar is an island, so there's this thing around which makes it more difficult to spill over such. But you're quite right. It is a part of the tendency we see it all over the continent, where youth is taken to the streets to try to reform and try to transform and force through reforms that have been long overdue. And I mentioned some countries before, and in Southern Africa, where we've just seen that. We saw in Zambia when the former president tried to manipulate the system and the youth went to the streets, and we had a successful democratic transition a few years back. But again, if you just look to Kenya, to look what's going on in Tanzania at the moment with the increased authoritarian tendencies and all that. So there's a lot of examples around the continent where this idea of having an Arab Spring, going to the streets, taking power into your own hands because the elites are serving for themselves in a very difficult economic and social circumstances and all that for a majority of the population in these countries, of course, is something that can spread. And then the idea of this actually possible to get political change by taking power into your hands and go to the streets. And again, we just have to look to South Africa. We just, the figures in South Africa are staggering. So again, you shouldn't think too long when you have corrupt elites manipulating power, misusing systems, and acting with impunity. That is something that can trigger people that have been marginalized and are living in poverty and are very vulnerable in society. I mean, you combine that with crime and climate change, all these kind of things, then of course you have a very powerful cocktail that can explode in your hands if you're not careful handling this.
So what should the new leadership of Madagascar be looking to do to ensure that peace prevails in the country, and that the Gen Z are satisfied to a certain extent to wait out this 18 to 24 months period?
I think that we have this. There's this within development work. One talks about 22 months to actually implement. If you have a promise, agreement on something, you have 22 months to show tangible results. And that's from the literature, right? And one could say that the military regime or the transitional government, let's put it that way, they need to show that they are genuinely listening and have a dialogue with the civil society groups, the opposition parties, trying to once and for all make reforms. That means, for instance, service delivery on water, electricity. It means that you have you look at job creation, you try to create wealth, and you try to create jobs for individual people, and especially you try to clamp down visibly on corruption, for instance, and mismanagement and abuse of power, which have been so widespread in Madagascar for recent years. So some of these have an inclusive dialogue, but also be very and show tangible results on the things you agree to try to change, and show that you actually are there to do a genuine modernization of society. And one should, if one has to do a comparison to some of the other coup countries, that is exactly what Traoré, Burkina Faso, has been saying that he wants to do. Whether he's doing it is a different story, what he's doing and all that. But that's at least what he's saying, that he wants to get rid of the previous elites, try to restart the society and create a modern democratic state for the people and with the people and all that. Where you could say what's going on in Mali and in Niger, for instance, are very, very different. Where it's the old elites basically taking power and holding onto power to a large extent. Yeah. So I think the transitional government needs to look around and take the good examples, and secure dialogue and inclusion of and try to address the issues being raised by these actors.
And just in wrapping up, Prof, what should both the African Union and SADC nations be doing to address this issue?
I think they need to be critical, on this military government, because it is a military takeover. Even though Parliament is still there, and Parliament has been involved in all that. So in that sense, you have a semi-constitutional change of government, all that. So there's a bit on the edges there, grey zone kind of thing. But you need to have a critical dialogue with Madagascar to make sure that the situation do not escalate. You need to have a critical dialogue on how to reestablish constitutional order, and actually also make sure and help and assist as much as possible the transitional government in actually trying to calm the situation, try to get this dialogue up and running, and guide to make sure that we have an inclusive process that can lead to a better society and a more sustainable society for the future, by including civil society, youth group, these Gen Z groups, and all that. And SADC can play a key role here in mediating, creating frameworks and assisting, but also by political pressure on the government, and be quite frank and quite honest around this. But of course, many SADC countries are facing similar problems. So many elites would fear this, what they're seeing at Madagascar, because it could be them the next time. Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Angola, just to mention a few.
Yeah. Well, Prof, we have run out of time, Professor Mundrup, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you for having me.
It's an expert in African security governance at the Royal Danish Defence College, Professor Thomas Mandrup, joining us on the line.
AUSISA, the Association of Water and Sanitation Institution of South Africa, is a platform uniting Africa's water professionals. This November, Africa leads the conversation on water and sanitation. Join global and African leaders at the AUSISA Africa and Global South Dialogue 2025 from the 9th till the 12th of November at the Emperor's Palace, Johannesburg. From policy innovation, this is where action meets collaboration for a water-secure future. Register today at ausisa-watersan-dialogue.org or follow at AUSISA on social media. AUSISA, working together for sustainable water and sanitation security in Africa. Let the good times roll. From the 10th of October, make a note. Channel Africa is stepping into a brand new era with the launch of our upgraded website and app. It's easy, fresh, and always on your fingertips. Wherever you are in the world, Africa's voice is just a click away. The future of Channel Africa goes live from the 10th of October. Don't miss the moments. Africa at Play with Neto and ETO Chemane.
I've witnessed something fresh, something exciting, and something very inspirational from the president of the country, William Ruto. Whenever athletes are performing to their best level, he always comes on board to reward those athletes, be it football, be it athletics, and not leaving it up to the sport ministry.
The president realizes that sports is a business, and for that reason, he also reduces the number of people who are jobless, because sports now now is such a serious business, and for that reason, commercialization of sport is a major way of improving or increasing employment opportunities for the young people, and that is why the president has been very persistent in trying as much as possible to inspire more sports personalities to reduce the baggage of the people who are struggling to get job opportunities in the country among the young people.
Francis FM Mutegi, our correspondent from East Africa in Nairobi, Kenya.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 26 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The existence of audio evidence meant to illustrate threats against South Africa's Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who has been placed on special leave, has been dismissed by Parliament's ad hoc committee. The committee is looking into wide-ranging allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the justice system made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Among others, Mkhwanazi alleged that top police officers and Mchunu are involved with criminal syndicates. Now, the audio in question is between Mchunu's Chief of Staff, Cedric Ngabinde, and Mkhwanazi. Now, the SABC's Zelene Merrington has more.
Last week, Mchunu told MPs the audio proves that Mkhwanazi made threatening remarks towards him during these conversations. However, the specific section of the audio about threats could not be found. On Tuesday, he told MPs the threats were made before the recording was started, which prompted this response from the committee chairperson, Mulapile Khanyane.
Do we go back to our statement that the extract that you wanted us to hear is not there, so that we stop making reference to this evidence which has not appeared before us? Can we just bury it that way?
Yeah, it is not there.
ANC MP Kusela Diko wanted clarity on whether it meant Mchunu is withdrawing the evidence or the claim of a threat.
I understand the mistake about the recording, which I think the apology from the minister is accepted. But I just want to confirm whether the minister is therefore withdrawing the fact that there were threats that were made to him.
No, what I'm withdrawing is that I have not been able to provide the recording, but the threat,
no,
the threat remains.
Okay.
Mchunu's alleged proximity to dubious characters again came under the spotlight. EFF leader Julius Malema questioned why Mchunu would pursue an affidavit from trial-awaiting Vusi Musikat Matlala, who is facing attempted murder charges, to affirm that they have no relations.
I know legally there's nothing wrong and all of that. But morally, society has got a problem with this chap. And you still want to associate in a way with this chap, because you didn't need Matlala's affidavit to tell us that you don't know Matlala. You don't need Matlala's affidavit. This is a guy they say got 360 million tender in your department, and you say you cancelled it because it was wrongly awarded. Why would you want to be associated with such a person? Now we're sitting here, you've got a affidavit from a morally questionable character, whereas a character that writes an affidavit from maximum prison.
Mchunu will continue with the second day of questions from MPs today. Zelene Merrington, Parliament.
It is 29 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406-9126 hashtag Africa Updates, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. Our news headlines up next with Jwalani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Making headlines, former First Lady in Ivory Coast, Simone Gbagbo, who was once wanted by the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity, is running for president in this week's elections. The diplomatic advisor to the United Arab Emirates President Anwar Gargash has called for an immediate ceasefire in Sudan. And finally, US President Donald Trump has said he did not want a wasted meeting after applying to have face-to-face talks with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, about the war in Ukraine were put on hold. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
We kick off with football news. The road to the Total Energies CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2026 heat up this week as Southern African teams enter decisive second-round qualifying action. With places at next year's continental showpiece at stake, 3 intense contests take center stage. DR Congo versus South Africa. A 2022 continental champion South Africa begin away to DR Congo in Kinshasa before hosting the return leg 6 days later. Banyana coach Desiree Ellis has called on her experienced core, including Refilo Jane, the returning Thembi Kgatlana and Andile Dlamini, to ensure smooth passage to Morocco. Namibia takes on Zambia. Another fierce rivalry resumes as Namibia's Brave Warriors host Zambia's Copper Queens in Johannesburg on Wednesday before the return in Ndola. Zambia are without injured star forward Barbara Banda, but remain among the continent's strongest attack sides. Namibia's, guided by coach Laki Kavuva, will seek defensive organization and pace on the counter to cause an upset. Namibia will be buoyed by their showing against Zambia in the qualifiers for the previous continental finals. And Angola takes on Malawi. That's a tie could be evenly matched. Malawi's Scorchers, inspired by captain Tabita Chawinga, will look to maintain their recent scoring form, while Angola aim to continue their steady improvement in recent years. The Luanda leg on Thursday will be crucial before the decisive return fixture in Lilongwe 5 days later. Borussia Dortmund midfielder Felix Nemcha scored in each half as they overcame conceding an own goal to comfortably beat Copenhagen 4-2 in the Champions League clash at the Parken Stadium yesterday. The Danes defended gallantly in front of their fanatical fans, but they were powerless to stop a Dortmund side that dominated possession and had the quality to get the better of them. Nemcha broke the deadlock in the 20th minute, pulling off a superb dummy on the edge of the area, allowing the ball to run across his body to send Elias Achiri the wrong way before rifling the ball over the keeper. And South African weightlifter Anneke Spiesberger says she is determined to strike a balance between motherhood and her pursuit of qualification for next year's Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. The seasoned lifter recently returned from the World Championship in Norway, where she competed just 12 weeks after giving birth to her daughter Bailey. Spiesberger said her focus now is on building strength and consistency as she works towards what she confirmed will be her final international appearance.
I'm happy to call it quits. I love the sport, but I mean, next year I'm 33. I still want to grow my family eventually, and so I think the weightlifting takes a lot of your time. It takes a lot of money because you have to pay for the comps. So I'd rather just go back to CrossFit, maybe do a high rocks just for the fun of it. Still keep training, of course, but I will be done with the competing and lifting.
Let's end with tennis news. Britain's Cameron Norrie battled his way to victory over 7th seed Andrei Rublev to progress to the second round of the Easterbank Open. World number 35th, Norrie won the 2-hour match 6-2, 6-7, 5-7 tiebreaker, 6-2 in Austria. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
With your business news this hour, I'm Matabala Mahabe. Good afternoon. Starting off with the story, BNP Paribas has sought to reassure investors yesterday that it faces limited exposure to a Sudan-related litigation. Although analysts said there was a continued uncertainty and shares in the lender dropped again. This after a U.S. jury on Friday found that the French bank had helped Sudan's government commit genocide by providing banking services that violated American sanctions. The court ordered that the Eurozone's biggest lender by assets to pay a combined $20.5 million to 3 Sudanese plaintiffs who testified about human rights abuses perpetuated under former President Omar al-Bashir's rule, raising concerns about potential further claims. BNP shares, which tumbled sharply on Monday as investors assessed the implications, were down 1.6% yesterday. An economist at Standard Bank in South Africa, Elna Moolman, says inflation came out in line with expectations. Data released by Statistics South Africa shows that the annual consumer inflation ticked up marginally from 3.3% in August to 3.4% in September of 2025. Annual inflation accelerated across several product categories, most notably transport, restaurants and accommodation. The data indicates that food and non-alcoholic beverages, tobacco, furnishings and household equipment recorded lower rates compared to the previous month. Moman elaborates.
Marginal differences relative to expectations came from food prices, which declined 0.4% relative to the previous month, but was counteracted by an acceleration in rental inflation, which, while higher, still remains relatively low. While inflation is higher than the Reserve Bank's aim of 3% trend inflation, it remains lower than aggregate income growth, with the expansion of real or inflation-adjusted incomes then still providing support for consumers.
And the legal battle involving the Socio-Economic Rights Institute, SERI, in South Africa against the city of Johannesburg has been postponed to next Tuesday by the High Court. SERI took the city to court, arguing that it acted unlawfully by removing informal traders from their trading sites. The city, on the other hand, has argued that the influx of informal traders is contributing to untidiness of the CBD. In recent weeks, the municipality has implemented its cleanup and bylaw enforcement program as part of reclaiming the city, SERI's legal counsel, Deborah Raduba.
It was supposed to take place, but what was raised by the city and why we couldn't proceed to argue was, number one, the prior involvement of Judge Wilson when he was an advocate. In 2013, he represented a case similar to this. And number two, which was the one that had more weight, more bearing in the decision, is that the city says they haven't had sufficient time to peruse the papers and to then draft a response because a lot of government city departments are involved, including JMPD, the Mayoral Office, DED, and the like.
And South Africa's Public Service and Administration Minister Chief Mzamo Buthelezi says there will be serious repercussions for those found to be ghost workers in government departments. Buthelezi says at the moment the department is busy compiling a comprehensive report to determine the financial cost of ghost employees. The investigation is being conducted with the National Treasury and the South African Revenue Service, SARS. Last month, the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana highlighted the financial implications of ghost workers and suspended employees during the budget tabling. Minister Buthelezi says once the report is finalized, they will deal with perpetrators.
We are working very closely. We issued a circular, in fact, to all departments, first and foremost, and also we are working very close with National Treasury and also with SARS. So once, therefore, our endeavor has been completed, we'll then compile a report together with them, having verified all the information that has been provided, and then we'll come to account to the Republic of South Africa, and also as to how, if indeed there are some shenanigans that have been discovered, how do we deal with those that are involved in terms of consequence management.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is in Indonesia on a state visit to strengthen bilateral relations with Jakarta. President Ramaphosa says Pretoria is looking to diversify its trade relations with Asian countries. This after the U.S. implemented a 30% tariff increase against South Africa on goods exported to the U.S. market. He is on a three-nation visit, including Malaysia and Vietnam. President Ramaphosa says he also engaged President Prabowo Subianto on a variety of global matters.
We agreed on the need to increase trade between our two countries as a catalyst for inclusive economic growth. We discussed global issues as partners in the organizations such as BRICS, the G20, and the Non-Aligned Movement, amongst others. We affirmed the need to strengthen the multilateral system so as to enhance peaceful resolution of conflict through dialogue.
And a look at your financial indicators. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,465 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 25. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 48. In Zambia, it's 22 kwacha 60. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 reals 37. Russia, it's 81 rubles 12. India, it's 87 rupees 98. China, it's 7 yuan 11. And in South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 32 cents. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. A look at your commodities. Gold is trading at $4,075 and platinum at $1,547 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $62.35 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business News, I am Matapela Mahape.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12:42 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Thank you to Matapela Mahape with our business news. Now, political tensions are running high in Tanzania after the High Court dismissed a petition filed by opposition presidential hopeful Luhaga Mpina of the Alliance for Change and Transparency. The court ruled that it lacked jurisdiction to review the Electoral Commission's decision to disqualify Mpina from contesting in next month's general election, effectively ending his presidential ambitions just 2 weeks before the polls. Mpina, a former minister and one of ACT Wazalendo's key figures, had challenged the Commission's decision, arguing that his disqualification was politically motivated and aimed at sidelining strong opposition voices. The court's ruling now clears the path for the ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi party led by President Samia Suluhu Hassan to face a weakened opposition field. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by Glory Tawusi Shayo. She is the deputy spokesperson for the women wing at ACT Wazalendo in Tanzania. Glory, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Now, Glory, what your reaction to the latest court decision?
Well, we're not happy with that decision, but as you know, we have appealed, hoping that even if it remains 2 days, we'll still have a presidential candidate from our party. Now, so we're waiting.
Political analysts are saying that the outcome highlights growing concerns over Tanzania's democratic space, which opposition parties claim has continued to narrow under the current administration. What has been your experience on the ground?
Well, I'm vying for a constituency in Kawe, Dar es Salaam. My experience with whatever is happening is not that bad. everything is going well. It's just unfortunately that we do not have the presidential candidate, Mr. Luaga Mpina, who was, the court ruling. But apart from that position, other things are going well. I have nothing negative to say, honestly speaking. It's just that we're lacking a presidential candidate at the moment.
Now, Glory, some have accused the court ruling of not only sidelining a major opposition candidate, but also sending a message about the limited legal avenues available for political redress in Tanzania. You're saying that everything is running smoothly, everything is okay. The only problem that you have is the fact that you do not have a presidential candidate. Talk to us about this, because from what citizens are saying on the ground, there's a total shift in Tanzania, especially when it comes to, freedom of expression, which has been highlighted, and a number of issues that have been put up on social media.
Well, I don't know. We have one party that is dominant in our country, and that is CCM. And it's been dominant through different use of power, legal, and the removal of Luhaga from this election tells a lot. But it's fortunate that it goes high up in the food chain as from the presidential candidate. As for us who are vying in these constituents, we haven't met by anything that can say has hindered our political our campaigns. So I don't have much to say based on front. The only issue we have right now is that most people are not willing to go out to vote unless you talk to them and you convince them that they should go out because voting is their right. Most people, yes, the ground has shifted a lot because most people are not willing to go out and vote. And that's the major they're facing right now.
And what reasons are you getting from the ground with regards to people not wanting to go out and cast their ballots?
There are different political parties in Tanzania, and there's been the No Reforms, No Election movement for a while now. And the reason people are giving is that we know we'll come out and vote, but we are not sure if they will announce you as a winner. And so the only thing that I've been doing for the past 60 days, for the past 53 days is convincing them. If I win, I'll make sure that they will announce. I have enough agents that will protect the votes. And I believe I've done a job on the ground to ensure that if I win, I will be announced.
All right.
That's
well, Glory, we have run out of time and are going to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much.
That's Glory Tawusi Shayo. She is the deputy spokesperson for the women's wing at ACT Wazalendo in Tanzania, joining us on the line. It is 12:49 Central African Time.
Nkhanza zokhudza amuna ndi azimayi kapena kuti gender-based violence GBV zikuwononga mioyo komanso kuphwasula midzi. Zikuchitika m'manyumba, m'masukulu, malo ogwirira ntchito ndipo kwambiri mwakachetechete. Koma sizikuyenera kupitirira. Mukazimva yankhulani. Ngati mwakhuzidwa funani chithandizo. Chifukwa kusachita chilichonse sikuthandiza. Mverani kuma wireless onse 14 a SABC kuchokera lachitatu pa 23 mwezi uno wa Julai kuti mumve zokambirana, malangizo, masewero, zionetsero za maphunziro ndi mafunso okhuza nkhanza za amuna ndi azimayi ndi akatswiri, anthu opulumuka ku nkhanzazi, kukhazikitsa lamulo komanso dziko lonse lokhuzidwa ndi nkhanzazi. Zonsezi pa wireless yomwe mumayikonda ya SABC. imbirani pa nambala 0800 428 428 kuti munene za nkhanzazi kapena kupeza chithandizo. Nkhanza zokhuza amuna ndi azimayi zimatha ndi inu. Uthenga ukufikani kuchokera ku SABC.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Let the good times roll. From the 10th of October, make a note. Channel Africa is stepping into a brand new era with the launch of our upgraded website and app. It's easy, fresh, and always on your fingertips. Wherever you are in the world, Africa's voice is just a click away. The future of Channel Africa. Okay. Goes live from the 10th of October. Don't miss the moments. Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
It is 12:51 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. From the Conference on Public Health in Africa 2025, we turn our focus to Liberia, a country that's making bold strides to transform women's, children's and adolescents' health despite global funding headwinds. With support from the Global Leaders Network, Liberia is building stronger partnerships, smarter financing models and evidence-based reforms to deliver results. Now, joining us now is a representative from Liberia's Ministry of Health. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thanks so much, and good afternoon.
Now, firstly, Liberia has faced tough systemic challenges, limited domestic funding, capacity constraints and donor fatigue. How is the ministry keeping essential RMNCH and SRHR services afloat and amid these pressures? And just how are you managing to get global funding, in terms of the work that you do on the ground?
So, considering the challenges faced by Liberia, I'm sure it's a global issue, considering the usage pause. Liberia, on the other hand, the government has tried when it comes to sustainability on providing or increasing our health budget. But we do still have challenges as it relates to us fully implementing our maternal, newborn, and child health services across the country, including at the adolescent. We'll focus more on our family planning, on safe delivery, post-abortion care, and also reducing our maternal mortality rate.
Now, we hear
when
a
it
lot.
Comes to,
Please go ahead.
Yes. Considering the distances and our hard to reach facilities, referral system is still a challenge for us. But the government over the past few months have tried integrating our roads, especially improving road connectivity. But in the rainy season, we do still have challenges.
Now, we hear a lot about country ownership. How is Liberia turning that idea into practice, ensuring your national plans, not donor agendas, drive investment decisions?
We still do have challenges with that. I'm sure you're quite across other countries. But the president of Liberia, supporting the Ministry of Health, has tried increasing the budget for health
and trying to get funds from other entities to see how we can improve the health sector, but yet we still have needs, and most of them is being supported by partners or donors from other organizations.
And just looking at the Global Leaders Network, it has been described as a catalyst for countries like Liberia. What practical impact has that partnership had so far in terms of funding, access, or coordination?
When it comes to coordination, our first interaction with the Global Leaders Network, we have collaborated over the past few months, especially with concern on they helping us to improve our maternal and post-abortion care services. I know we have had interactive meetings, and there are plans on the way for Global Leaders Network to support Liberia, especially improving our post-abortion care, trying to improve capacity building for our healthcare workers as it relates to abortion, and also equipping our facilities with needed supplies for us to improve our post-abortion care. So bravo to Global Leaders Network.
Now, modeling and evidence generation are becoming central for Liberia's planning. How will this data-driven approach help you better target resources and close the gaps in women's and adolescents' health? Will those models also inform domestic financing strategies and accountability frameworks?
Yes, discussing the modeling work with the Global Leaders Network, I'm sure we see a lot of prospects when it comes to us improving our decision making, especially basing it on evidence, reviewing the data across the country over the past few months as it relates to our abortion services, as it relates to our maternal services. We think the modeling work will improve our decision making and guide our priorities as we move forward.
Now, we understand that in terms of the Conference on Public Health in Africa 2025, we've heard that the demographic dividend depends on resilient health systems and empowered women. How is Liberia linking the SRHR investments to broader development and economic goals?
So I know over the years, Liberia have tried and have made significant progress, but upon the new leadership, I think we have done a lot trying to equip most of our primary healthcare facilities, having our partners looking at improving our sexual reproductive health services across the country. We have tried to decentralize service delivery, especially at county and district level. We have tried to improve our community approach when it comes to us improving our maternal and newborn services or sexual reproductive health across the country. So we still have few steps or few progress to be made, but Liberia over the past few years have made significant progress. And we hope to do more as a country with partners in the Global Leadership Network support.
Well, Dr. Nuntia Balon Nua, thank you for joining us on Africa Update. We are going to leave it there for today.
Thanks so much.
That's Dr. Nuntia Balon Nua from Liberia's Department of Health, and she is joining us on the line from Durban at the CPHIA 2025. That is the Conference on Public Health in Africa 2025. This is, and basically she was just giving us an update as to how they are able to bring progress in period, especially when you look at aid that has been stopped for a number of countries across the African continent. It is 12:59 Central African time, and this is where we leave it on Africa Update. Thank you for joining us. Continue with us on our social media platforms, and thank you to our team that is out here, Stagazelo and Catherine Malika, as well as our social media team that is Sfiso Shope and Talent Butelezi. Let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Ugandan police